And we will go through the over the importance of every single section of this, because there's some tools here that you can use, use to make your project more appealing, that you can use to make sure that people will like to donate to your project. So we'll start by this picture, which is really, really important, because that's the first thing people see. Even before the title, they see that picture. Usually on the search page, you have a gallery of all the projects, and you can see the small profile pictures of those projects. So having an appealing picture here is super important. What should that look like? That depends a lot on your project. I think this picture is really nice. It has kids, which everybody likes. It has smiling kids, which is great because you really want to have something positive here. And they all look very openly into the camera. It shows what the project does. It feeds children. So this is a very, very well chosen picture, I would say. Whenever you use visual media, which you do have to do in crowdfunding circumstances, because that's how you will attract eyes to your project, be very considerate about the pictures you use. I think people like to look at pictures of children. They are always very engaging, but you have to be careful to also think about the privacy of the kids involved. I think in this case, it's fine because it's a positive situation. I guess their parents have consented, hopefully. So you always, if you want to use pictures of people, it doesn't matter if it's kids or adults, you always have to have their consent. That pictures can be published on these pages because you're publishing their likeness. No? And it's a positive situation for those children. So I think that is fine. That looks like a respectful picture. Do not use like pictures of people suffering, at least never of children, I would say, because that is kind of disrespectful, showing someone in that position if they cannot consent, and children cannot consent. You can have a signature for their parents, but they did not consent because they cannot grasp the concept of that at their age. So you will often, if you go through those pages, you will see like pictures of children with big eyes and like the big belly because they're hungry. Those are not good pictures. Maybe they catch the attention. First of all, it's not a good picture because it's not respectful towards the child. And second of all, it's not a good picture for a donation campaign because it just sparks negative emotions. And maybe you will catch people's attention and they will say, oh, look at these poor children, and give money once. But what you want is the donor retention. You want them to donate again and again. And you will do that much better if you have something positive in your project, if they connect their donation with a positive feeling and not only with the feeling of pity, because then very quickly they will feel frustrated and not necessarily donate again that much. So I think trying to focus on the positive aspects is super important, and being very respectful. So I know that some projects cannot show their participants, for example, if they're vulnerable groups, etc. So then you have to use your fantasy a bit. So sometimes you can use people from the back. Sometimes you can show pictures of buildings, of what you're doing, of just hands, whatever. But just carefully consider what kind of media, what kind of picture you want to use here. Then you have the summary, which again is all of these aspects are important. You really have to put thought into how to fill these sections out. So the summary, it gives you like 2-3 sentences where you can summarize what your project does. Focus on the project here. Do not introduce your organization. Do not mince any words about anything else. You really want to use that space to make sure that they understand what your project is about. What's the problem? What do you do to solve it? And that's it. And be succinct, be precise, be engaging here, and use those words very wisely. If you start rambling here, only people that are super interested will click on read more. And the people who are just scrolling through, who are just looking for somewhere to donate, maybe without too much of a commitment, you will lose them, and you really don't want that. So just think a lot about what you want to do here. And then at the bottom, you can see statistics of the project, which is also important. I think many people look at this. So you have the total goal. So how much are they trying to raise? I think this is this is the same number as on top. Then how much is remaining? How many donors? So the more donors, the better, because that shows people trust your project. How many monthly donors? That's a feature that they have on this platform. Not every platform has that. So you can commit monthly and donate every month. How many fundraisers? So those are those events, like when someone runs a marathon or has a birthday party and collects money for you through this page. That's a fundraiser. And how many years have they been on that platform? That is also important, because the younger you are, the fewer years you have been on that platform, the more issues people might have with trusting you. So if you are thinking about doing a crowdfunding campaign next year, I would recommend you already register now, because then that time starts counting, and then maybe next year it will say 2 years, and that's already better than 1 year. But all those things can be compensated if your content is great. Just the more supporters you have, the more track record you have on the platform, the easier it will be for people to trust you, and trust is always an issue in these circumstances. Then we have this section at the top, this meter that shows how much is already raised. And this is super important, because this kind of speaks to the brain of people, that if they feel like, if this bar was just at 10,000, I think people wouldn't donate that much. But now they feel like, oh, it's just a little bit to go. It's not much left. So if I contribute, my contribution will actually really have an impact. So this obviously is a big NGO that has been on that platform for a long time, has been raising a lot of money there. So they can set their goal at 160,000 euros, which is it's a very high amount. If you just start out, you should start with something more realistic, maybe 5,000, maybe maximum of 10,000 that you think you can achieve. And if you are doing your very first campaign, start even lower, because if you put an amount there that is too high, people will feel discouraged of giving to you. If someone has to give $10, that's what they can give, and they see that you are trying to raise 100,000 and you just have 1,000, then they will think, my $10, they will do nothing in this project, because they will just never reach the 100,000. But if you put 1,000 and you already have 500, then they will think, oh, maybe my $10 can really make a difference here. So think about who you want to speak to, who you want to address, how much money they can give. If it's more like people that will give $10 or more people who give 100, that's a difference. And then set the amount appropriately. But I would start small, because it's always better to have one project successfully and then maybe start another one. If you realize, oh, this is going very great, then you can start another one, or you can even change that amount on some profiles, on some platforms. But don't start too high, because that is very discouraging for you, but also for potential donors. They won't want to donate to you. So this section is important for the psychology, because if people see that an amount is almost reached, then they will definitely spend that money. And then you have this section, which is one of the greatest parts on crowdfunding pages, I think, because it gives you the opportunity to really have categories of things that you need. And it's so much, if somebody wants to donate to you and they say, oh, I have $10, I have $100, and they don't know what will happen with those $100, it's difficult. They don't have an understanding for what you will do with that money. But if they know exactly, my $100 will feed 400 students one lunch, that's something you can imagine. You have immediately have a picture in your head. You feel great, oh, I did this for 400 students. You have a positive emotion. That's what you want to achieve. So this section really gives you the opportunity to make the project come alive in the minds of your potential donors, and to make sure that they understand what their money will do. And the better you can do that, the more donations you will get. And people will also donate higher. So I think this is the reason why they probably put $11. I mean, I guess it might be the actual cost, but maybe 10 would have been okay as well, but then people would donate 10. 10 is like an amount, it's the full amounts are money you will get anyways. But so if someone wants to give $10, then they go to this page and say, oh, 11 would provide lunch for 40 children. Okay, I'll give 11. That's one more. 100. I want to give 100 euros. Okay, but 110 would feed 400 students. Okay, then I'll give 110. So I think you can also play around with those amounts. Obviously, it should be the cost, but you can round up, round down. It doesn't have to be 100% exact. No, you just have to attach a monetary value to one of the tasks that you want to do in your project that is positive. If you want to build a school, for example, you can say 100 bricks cost that much, 10 bricks cost that much, a sack of cement, stuff like that. That will be really helpful, and will make sure that you get more donations. You obviously at the bottom, you also have this line that says other amount. So it doesn't have to be only that, but this is super important. And even if you're not running a crowdfunding campaign, adding this information on your website, on your donation page on your website, is going to be a game changer. So if you say $100 will house 2 people for a month, or $100 will feed 400 kids for a day, you will get more donations surely than if you just say, please donate to us, any amount helps. Because again, people want to have the picture, people want to have the understanding of what their money does. And this really helps with that. Okay, and then we have this section, which I didn't open all the cards here, but again, this is important for retention and also to build trust. So you have the story, this is summary, etc., challenges, there's more text here, obviously, but then you have reports. And this is where many NGOs fall short, because they set up a great page, but then they don't update that page. And this is, as a donor, when you go on those pages, that's what I do. If I want to donate and I find the page of a project, I always check reports, because if they don't have any reports from the last months, then I think the project's not working anymore, or the project is not run professionally. So always update whenever something happens. Say, okay, today we had a meeting, here's some pictures. Today we distributed this and that, here's some pictures. Always report and thank people and make sure that they understand how the project is running and what's happening. So this section is crucial, especially if you want to retain donors, because if someone donated to your project, usually then they're signed up to news from your project. So whenever you update and report and say, well, we did this, we did that, we had this event, they get an email and they get reminded of your project. And if they like what they see, they might donate again. So it's a very, very powerful tool that you have there, but you have to use it. Same with pictures. Keep uploading pictures, new pictures, if you can. Obviously, if there's any, yeah, I think there's few projects where you cannot take any pictures. You can always take pictures of a landscape and explain what's happening, even if you can't show recipients, or yeah, just take pictures without faces, take pictures of materials, etc. But update this section, because this is where people check to build trust in your organization. And this is also where people check to see what has happened with their money. And they want to know that, because if they like what they see, they might donate again, they might share, they might let their friends know, all of this. So that is going to be crucial. And then, yeah, you have the share options. Obviously, we'll talk about that in a bit, how important it is, because your project needs to be shared. If nobody shares your page, then your crowdfunding campaign is close to dead. No, you need your campaign to be shared on social media, through email, to reach more people and then get more money in the long run. So those are the most important parts of your page. Obviously, the title is also important, because it's the first thing people see. So don't make it an appeal, like they do here with a verb in it. Help feed hungry children in Zimbabwe. Nothing too dry. Don't take your proposal title for this, because that is not appealing. And you're in fundraising here. You're not like in person-to-person fundraising, not in grant writing. So again, what are the requirements to set up a page like this on any of these platforms? They differ. Usually you need to register, obviously. And in some, you need your registration documents. So you need to be a registered NGO. You need your tax documents often to show that you're tax exempt, because that's what they want to see. Because when somebody donates to them, then you receive the money. So then you have to give a certificate to that platform that you're tax exempt. So then they can give, again, the certificates to the people who donate. And obviously account information. That means you need an account, and you need an account that they can work with. Sometimes, yeah, they don't work with all banks. They don't work with all kinds of accounts. So you really have to make sure if that is a good fit, and if you can work with them, and if you can receive the money, because there's nothing worse than having a great campaign, collecting a lot of money, and then not being able to cash in that check to receive the money, which has happened to us before if we didn't check properly. So really be careful about those things. And then choose wisely which platform you want to use. So what are projects that can have success on these platforms? What kinds of projects, which project ideas are good ones for crowdfunding success? There's different things that are important, but obviously the easiest things, and I've already seen there's one question, so we'll talk about that in the end a bit longer. This is easiest. If you can kind of tick those boxes, then you will have it very easy on crowdfunding platforms. Or, well, not very easy, but easier. So if you have visual media, if you can show people in your pictures, that is always a plus, because people relate to people. If they see pictures of other people, then yeah, they will feel closer to them. They will feel like they can relate to them, and they really would want to support them. So pictures, but also if you can videos, that is always a great way to inspire emotion and yeah, to connect. Then again, projects that inspire emotion, not only through visual media, but also through their text, through their mission, vision, etc. Emotions are kind of centered in a different area of the brain than the part that just thinks logically. So whenever you're able to touch upon different regions of your brain, people have to kind of, like, just putting it in very simple terms, have to think about things more. They remember things better. So and that inspires action, like the way to getting to someone to actually act is easier if somebody feels an emotion. So when you have projects that can do that, because you work with children or people in need, or you can really explain very well why your project is needed, that's always going to be easier than if you have, I don't know, if you have the driest project on earth, just working with software to make something more efficient, whatever. It's a tricky sell on these platforms. Not all projects are good fits for a crowdfunding platform. Then obviously projects that are interesting, that maybe are innovative, have a different approach, that people would like to hear and read and see something about. No, that is going to be helpful. If it's just very, very boring, if you are I don't know, running the 100th teacher training with the same methodology that has been used all over, you're going to have it more difficult. And then obviously projects that already have a huge following. That's why we always, we also talk about social media a lot. The importance of social media for NGOs and for projects. And this is one of those things, because if you already have 5,000 people following your project on Facebook, then it's going to be so much easier for you to get a campaign out there, distribute the information, and get support. But if you are starting and you have 2 people on Facebook and 1 person on Instagram, that's going to be so much trickier. So when you develop your social media, your outreach, that also pays into your crowdfunding account, kind of, because then you already have engaged networks that want to help, that are on the same page and that really want to support you. So I've read somewhere that even if someone can't donate to your campaign, if they share your link on their socials and through their email, even better, that's worth like $10, because then the average donation that comes in through sharing is that amount. So that is worth a lot. So if you have a huge following, that is a huge plus point if you're thinking about starting a crowdfunding campaign. Again, your network is crucial, because your page needs to be shared. Your page needs to be shared, and so that you have this snowball effect that makes crowdfunding work. No, so one person shares it with 3 people. If those 3 people again share it with 3 people, then you already have 9 people, and then that snowballs very quickly. Obviously, not everybody who receives something will share it, not everybody will donate, but you will have more people knowing about your project, about your work. So that is what you need to do. That means that you have to engage your network regularly. So if you want to do this via social media, which is the easiest way, you need to start those social media platforms and profiles before you have a crowdfunding campaign. Because if you only ever post to your socials when you have a crowdfunding campaign, then people will feel very used and they will not share that and they will not start doing this. So if you post all updates, pictures, etc. on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, well, Twitter maybe not anymore, but maybe even TikTok if you have a page there. And then every once in a while you have a crowdfunding campaign that is closely connected to all the work that you've been doing, then people will be happy to share. They will be happy to contribute. But if you only ever post about your crowdfunding campaign, and if the only newsletter you ever send out is please donate to our crowdfunding campaign, you won't be that successful. So you really need to engage with your network regularly. You need to give them some added value, which might just be information, might be pictures, might be something interesting, engaging that they want to see. And then when you have a campaign, you can actually use those channels and and really count on them to share that information and to support you here. So how can you make your projects shareable, or to make people want to share about it? Again, visual media is the easiest way because people are visual beings. So seeing something is always going to help. You can use storytelling tools. So learning how to tell interesting stories that again will spike emotions, will make people feel something, will make people relate. That is going to be really, really helpful. Try to not use pity pleas. So try to not say, oh, look at these poor people that need help, the needy, all these words. Try to avoid that, because obviously, yes, there is a situation that is bad that you want to change, that you want to find a solution for. Otherwise, you wouldn't have a project if everything was perfect. But if you make someone feel pity for the project participants, that's an emotion, definitely, and you might get donations in the beginning, but it's very difficult to retain those donors long term, because to always make someone feel bad is not a good solution. Focus on that solution that you're providing, on the positive stories of change that you have inspired or you have kind of triggered in the participants of your project, because that makes people feel something positive, and then they will want to support the project long term. Because just imagine if you if you always feel like you have to do something, because if you always feel guilty or feel pity, then that doesn't make you feel good. But if you feel like your contribution, your work has changed the life of people to the positive, and 10 kids now have finished their school because you contributed to that, and they have a better life, that's a positive emotion. That's something you want to talk about. That's something you want to get to the outside, and that you want to repeat. So no pity please, and focus on the positive. Yeah, create emotions, but focus on positive emotions. We've talked about that. And then engage supporters long-term. Use those sections for reports, use pictures, reach out. You have their email addresses usually. Often they sign up for your newsletter. So use all those tools to engage with your supporters long-term. And because then they will want to share if you have a new project, then they will want to support you however they can when you need it and when you reach out to them. How can you create emotion? Again, it's easy when readers or viewers can identify with the story. And that means when we talk about storytelling, usually we have the hero's journey. So we have a hero in the middle who has to overcome some challenges, overcome some obstacles, and then will finally succeed. Usually storytelling is used by telling the stories of project participants, but you can also sometimes put the donor in the middle and say, oh, look, this person didn't want to donate, but got information, met our participants, and now they love the project. They are donating all the time. This is an exaggeration, and tell the story of that person that found your NGO, wasn't sure, got to know you, overcame some obstacles, and now is a long-term supporter, because then others might be able to identify with that. They need to feel something positive. I've talked about that at length. Try to stay away from making people feel guilty, making people feel bad, but focus on the positive and on the change that is triggered by your project. And also make sure that the need for support is communicated clearly. Because sometimes people are great in telling stories and painting the picture, and then they're not saying how people can actually support and help. But that is also important, that at the end you have to say, look, we need this amount of money, we need this support from you, please share this, make sure that your community knows, etc. Develop your network at all times, even when you don't have a campaign, because people don't want to feel used. Develop adequate means of communication. So, for example, start a newsletter, start your social media platforms, your profiles, feed them, make sure that your communities grow. We do have, I think, webinars about social media. We'll run another one in the coming weeks about how NGOs can use social media for outreach, and this is very closely connected to the success of your crowdfunding campaigns. If you decide to do these things, make sure that you also have the resources to keep them up to date. Because I think a Facebook page that has been updated 1.5 years ago is worse than no Facebook page. And a newsletter that goes out, well, a newsletter, it's a bit different, because if your newsletter just goes out every 6 months, that's fine. It doesn't have to be all the time, but especially with social media accounts, they need to be curated. They need to be fed regularly. So if you start, make sure you have the resources to also actually keep working with it, because otherwise that will leave a bad impression. Yeah, with this, we already come to the end of the presentation that I have prepared. As always, we have a great offer for you. I've been talking about the crowdfunding and how to present your projects, but for that you already have to have a great project that is very engaging, that is interesting, etc. And in this resource guide that we have, NGO Guide to Proposal Writing, we talk about obviously how to write a great proposal, but that also means how to develop a great project. What are the things that need to be included here? And today, or actually usually we sell this book alone at $25 US, but today we kind of made a bundle for you with a full proposal template and the ultimate proposal checklist together, and you can get all of this together for 50% off, so just $12.50. You can get that, and I think my team probably put the link in the chat, and you'll also get that in the follow-up email. But with the coupon code webinar 2023, you can get that discount, and you can get the book and all the additional materials at the discounted rate. We also have many other online courses, other resources that you should check out. So we have courses on philanthropia.org, some very specific ones like creating log frames, how to raise funds from USAID or online fundraising, for example, but also general ones like proposal writing, how to develop a fundraising strategy, and all those ones. So please go to philanthropia.org and check out what we have to offer. We also have free courses, for example, about donor research, some Q&A courses, that could be very interesting. If you're already on YouTube, you can check out the rest of our videos. Otherwise, please visit and make sure you follow us on YouTube as well, because we upload all the webinars there, and a lot of additional material that could be interesting for you. For all the courses, because you joined today, you will get 35% off with the coupon code fundraise on any course that you find. So all of the courses I just showed you, everything you find on philanthropia.org, you can get a 35% discount with the coupon code fundraise. And then we have another service that is very interesting and could be useful for you, which is donordatabase.org. That is a donor database with more than 5,000 donors available for 197 countries in the world. So you just, you open your profile, then you type in your country, you type in your area of work, and then you will get a list of potential institutional donors that support the work you do in the country that you work in. Obviously, from there, you have to further research the foundations that pop up. You have to look if they really do have an open grant program at the moment, but it's a great way to save a lot of time in doing donor research. So I think the first week is free, so you can get a free week trial, and then it's a very reasonable price. I think 99 per year, not 100% sure, you have to check, but you can try it out for a week for free and see if it works for you, if it's helpful for you, and then adjust. You will just be charged after that first week, so you can make that a decision for yourself. But please check it out, donordatabase.org, a very, very helpful tool that we have poured a lot of work into. Yeah, so now we still have time for questions, and I see there's a couple in the Q&A box. But first of all, I want to thank you. Please go and check philanthropia.org for all of the services that we offer. And if you have any other questions, reach out to us at info@philanthropia.org, and we will make sure to get back to you. Okay, so I'll just stop this and go to your questions. Let's see. Okay, first question is, can you explain crowd investing again? Well, that's if you have a project, if you want to build a school, I know in Germany this happens a lot for hospitals or hospices, etc. When they don't have enough, when they don't have enough money and they need to take out a loan to build that, there's platforms for that as well, or sometimes through the newsletter or whatever, they just ask people to invest, to give some money, and then when the project is done, that is paid back with interest, obviously. But instead of going to a bank and saying we need €1 million, they get chunks of 10,000 euros from many people, and then all these people get return on their investment, maybe not as high as they would if they invested it in the stock market or somewhere. But they also know that their money was invested in a good cause. So that is actually great, I think. Okay, so Christian is asking, how about if you work in a sector that does not have so much emotional appeal? For example, we train, coach, and give small loans to entrepreneurs so that they can create more jobs. How can we make this as appealing as feeding hungry kids? I think with that, if you, I think it's obviously kids is always a plus, especially for someone just like perusing the page and looking for something random to donate to. But still, I mean, if you have the permission of people to be photographed, you can show people learning. And I think that is always a great thing. And many people who are looking to donate, they don't just want to give to kids. If the field you work in is so important and has been recognized by so many organizations, because feeding kids and making sure they have like primary education is step one. But then moving forward, making sure that they can actually find jobs, that they have a good vocational education is recognized by many people, also many individuals, as so important. So I think you can still make it very appealing. Show how you do it, show who you work with, how do you choose those people. You have text segments where you can explain that. And you can also split that up. You don't have to say whatever you feed your entrepreneurs, obviously not, but you can say, okay, we $1,000 will finance one training to make sure that 5 young people can have a job, or something like that. You can still break that down into things that are very relatable. So I think in that field, you work with people, you probably can show people, you have visual media, you have very good cause. I think you are absolutely well off. You can still design a great campaign. I think it gets a bit tricky when it's super technical, like when you're working not with people, but just with equipment or stuff like that. I know some projects are just very dry. Like if you, I don't know, digitalize a library or something like that. Those projects, while equally important, obviously, but can be very dry and can be a very hard sell. But then you just have to think about new ways. Maybe you can sit together with your with the people that do public relations and just think of new ways of telling that story. And I'm sure you can appeal to many people. Then Luis is asking a question. So you talked about using positive pictures. I understand it to the effect of organizations working with children, but what about organizations in environment and climate? Because in this space, activists use negative pictures to spread the message. Does this also apply to them? I would say yes. It's like it's a walk on a tightrope. But you probably also know, like with the climate, I think that's a very good example, because with climate change, we have a communication problem, because everything that is communicated to us is negative, or not everything, but a lot, because it is, obviously. I'm not absolutely not saying it isn't, it is. But if we keep telling people the situation we're in is catastrophic and we can't solve it and everything is bad and it's going to end and everything is horrible, then they get frustrated and very passive. And we see that the more footage of drought and flooding, etc., is thrown at people, the less they do, which is weird, but it's a psychological thing. I think, and there's studies out there on how to communicate, for example, about climate change to children. It is important to focus on the things that you can do, even though that might be small. And that absolutely doesn't mean that it's not horrible. I don't mean that. And you can give the context in text form, whatever. But if you show if you show somebody a picture of an oil pest, what can they do? They just feel depressed. They feel like, oh, damn, this is a very bad situation. Oh, okay, I'll go back to my TV. But if you show a picture of a person cleaning a bird, that is something where they think, oh, there's something we can actually do about this. Yes, the situation is bad, but there is a way that we can help. Oh, I can do something. So you need to make sure that people can relate to this. That doesn't mean that there shouldn't be any negative images or any. I hope I make myself clear. I can make clear what I mean. But focusing on the things that you can do is extremely important if you want to engage people. So again, it should be a mix. So obviously you can show the situation is bad. This is what it looks like, but then you should also show, but this is what we can do. And this is what we're doing, and showing that in the pictures. I think that's much more engaging than just seeing something so negative from the start. Then Emmanuel is asking, who designs the project page? Is it the NGO or the host? It's the NGO. So the structure is usually given, but you have to fill out everything. But it's just it's like a form where it asks you, like, enter the summary, and you enter the summary. Enter description of participants, and you enter that. Put picture here, and you upload the picture. So it leads you through it. You don't need to program anything, but you obviously have to fill in the content. Then Malati is asking, where does the money come to the NGO or the platform? It goes to the platform first, and then the platform releases it to the NGO under specific rules. So for example, with the NGOs I work with, most of them are registered under Better Place, and I have to provide, they collect the donations, and when you reach a specific threshold, they contact you and you say, oh, we can release the money now, but we need your tax exempt form. We need to, and they even tell us, so we need you to publish a report, because people want to know what happens with their money, and only then they release the money to you. So it doesn't come directly. It's first collected by the platform and then released whenever you reach a specific threshold, or when you request it. How to use the same methodology for raising services of people. I think there's very similar platforms. I think, for example, in Better Place, I think you can even also request volunteer services. And there is some platforms that use the very same structure to find volunteers. So you can just put up the tasks that you need done, and people can say, oh, yes, I can do that, and they can volunteer to work with your organization. You can just Google, maybe you just Google volunteer platform, something like that. I think those things come up. And on some, again, I know in Better Place it's possible. I'm not 100% sure about Global Giving, but there you can also ask people to support you. Then there's a question, must an NGO be tax exempt before using a crowdfunding platform? It depends on the platform. You would have to check. I think GoFundMe, no, but obviously people are going to be more prone to donate to you if you're tax exempt, because that's another thing that makes them trust you. But I think GoFundMe, you don't have to be. Global Giving, yes. Better Place, yes. It depends on the platform. You would have to check. And there's a question not about crowdfunding, but donor research. Please check on our website on philanthropia.org. We have a course that is called How to Find 50 Donors in 10 Minutes. So Eric teaches you how to do a quick donor research to find potential donors for your causes. So that's a great course that I recommend you sign up for. It's called Find 50 Donors in 10 Minutes. Then Jimmy references the same thing that I also said. The challenge is that most crowdfunding platforms are limited to Western countries, which is challenging as a third world country. Yes, that's what I also said, and I feel what we do usually when I fundraise for projects in Nepal, for example, I do this in partnership with a German NGO, and then we get the German NGO gets the money and then forwards it to the international NGO. It's a workaround that you can also think about, because it does work fine. But yeah, it is a big challenge that those platforms don't release into all countries and don't release into all accounts. Okay, we're out of time. We will collect the questions that you have asked, and because we also run Q&A sessions every now and then, where we just answer questions. So we will collect your questions and answer them in those sessions. We will inform you about the next Q&A session, obviously, through our newsletter. I hope you join us again. Thank you so much for joining today. Also, for everybody who joined us on YouTube Live. I hope this was useful for you. I hope that this is not the last time that we've met in our webinars. And for now, I would just say thank you again and have a good day. Bye-bye.